Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady. Where in today's episode, a Karen makes a huge mistake by grabbing a complete stranger, guys, who refuses to listen to her, and she regrets it big time. I hope you enjoyed the other stories in this one, and do remember to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. While I was a massage student, my school uniform consisted of light blue scrubs, with the school's logo printed on the chest, the same ones that most doctors or nurses wear. I was also unfortunate enough to have to take the bus for a good chunk of a semester. So one day, as I was riding home after a draining day of finals, this large example of humanity strolls onto the bus. He zeroes in on me and beelines to sit next to me, on an otherwise empty bus. Now, normally that's not an issue. I figure maybe this guy has something going on where he's missing some social cues. I can tell by his odor that bathing isn't a priority or concern, and good God, that smell still haunts me. I just turn my music up a bit and move to another seat, and the guy follows me. He moves to sit next to me again, and this time he's got me blocked next to a window, so there's no escape. I console myself with the fact that it's only another 2 miles until my stop, only taking in small breaths when I couldn't hold my breath any longer. The guy then starts talking to me, so I turn up the music another tiny bit. I'm trying my best to ignore the smells and sounds coming from next to me, but it's all a bit much. The guy notices that I'm not paying attention to him, and he taps me on the shoulder. So I pull out an earbud and acknowledge him, and that's where my I don't work here lady starts. The guy says, "Hey, it's against the law to ignore patients, you know." I tell him, "I'm not a doctor." He says, "Yes, you are. You are in uniform." I told him, "No, this is my school uniform, and I'm not a doctor." He says, "Oh, you're a nurse then?" No. I'm not a doctor or a nurse. I'm just a person in uniform going home. Have a nice day." I then try to put my earbuds back in, and at this point, the guy screams, "No, you need to check my sores." The guy then lifts up his shirt to expose what I can only guess are sores and infections on his stomach. The smells of body odor and infection are now strong enough that I'm about to toss my cookies. The smelly guy then says, "Look at me. What's wrong with me? They itch and they hurt." I say to him, "For the love of God, yes, you need to see somebody about that. I don't know what's wrong with you." He then says, "See, you are a doctor. I knew it." I told him, "No, does this look like a clinic? Did you have an appointment? No. Now get away from me, you weirdo." The guy then calls me a bitch and says that I'm the worst person to be working in healthcare. I finally make a snap decision by standing up and yelling at him to move. He didn't, and I actually had to crawl over the seats in front of me to escape the smelly guy. The bus driver has calmly watched all this happen, and he asked me if I want off early, as my stop is coming up. I take him up on the offer. So while I'm walking to the exit, I hear the smelly guy start to get up too, muttering about making sure that he sees where this, quote, "doctor bitch" goes. Now, bless the driver's heart, he did me an amazing favor that day. So as I was walking off the bus, I heard the driver tell him that if he tries to get off the bus, he's calling the cops. That and the lady is not a doctor or a nurse, and he needs to sit down and quit hassling people. I then watched the bus pull away, and I was never so thankful for a long walk home. In the time I took the bus, I never heard that driver say much of anything to other passengers, let alone speak that way to another person. Even if OP was a doctor or a nurse, they aren't obligated to treat some random person on the street. And oh my freaking goodness, guys, I can smell that guy from here. Like, dude, you're beyond help. You gotta go to the hospital at that point. So on this day, I was walking to the market because I was gonna get stuff for cake. I had my earbuds in both ears, and I got to the baking section. At that point, I knocked over 5 things of packaged cake mix while reaching for the frosting because I have terrible coordination. While I was picking them up, I guess I didn't hear the lady behind me because my earbuds. And she literally grabs me by the arm and she tries to yank me up. She starts yelling at me, and it sort of goes like this. Karen screams, "Don't you ignore me when I'm speaking to you. If I'm asking you for help, you help me." Now, I'm standing there not knowing what to do. She starts screaming at me, asking me why I'm listening to music on the job, and that I'm useless if I can't hear customers. She was getting mad at this point and was screaming so loud that an actual manager comes over and asks what's wrong. So I said, "I'm sorry, sir. My mom has early onset dementia and Alzheimer's, and I have to take care of her. This won't happen again, I promise." Hearing me say that, the Karen sputters, "Wait, no, I then interrupt her and say, "Mom, come on, we need to get your meds." I then look to the manager and say, "Sorry for the disturbance. She's having a really hard time today." The manager then says to me, "No, it's fine. Have a nice day." The Karen huffs, realizing that I'm not an employee, and she walks out. I get my cake stuff, pay, and leave. Guys, I laughed way harder than I should have when I read that OP turned that Karen into his mom. Like, I was expecting a full-blown mega Karen at that point. Like, how dare you disrespect me, blah blah blah, followed by 911 getting called. Years ago, in the early 2000s, I was working 24-hour shifts on an ambulance. Since we were working these extended shifts, we had a kitchen at our station. So if we didn't have a call right at the beginning of the shift, the first thing we do in the morning is grocery shopping for the day. Now, just to make sure it's clear that there's no possible way for us to be mistaken for the uniform of the store employees, we wore blue button-down shirts. We had a patch on one arm that said state of so-and-so and our certification level. And on the other arm, we had a patch with our company logo on it. We had dark blue pants, with about 500,000 pockets, radio on our belts, etc, etc. The grocery store employees' uniforms were either white or a tan shirt and black pants, and usually some type of apron with the store logo. Now, the last bit of info I should add is that the area we worked in was one of the richest neighborhoods in our metro area, and usually the cheapest car you saw in the parking lot was a Lexus. So now that the stage is set, comes the adventure. My partner and I were at the store doing the grocery shopping for the day, and it was a relatively quiet Sunday morning. Other than us, there was only a couple of other shoppers in the store, and several employees were plainly visible doing their morning duties. I'm busy trying to decide if I want link or patty sausages for breakfast, when I hear the classic ahem. Now, I am pretty engrossed because, let's be honest, it's an important decision, and now I'm weighing bacon into the mix too. I don't really pay too much attention. Then I hear it again, accompanied by finger snapping, and I'm broken out of my sizzling reverie by this, and I think maybe I'm blocking someone's access to the cooler. So I turn around, and there is this lady in her 60s, dressed up way too fancy for an early Sunday morning grocery run, and she's staring daggers at me. Now, this is the point where I say, "I'm sorry, ma'am, am I blocking your way?" She says, "No, I need you to get me this item." I then say to her, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I'm not an employee here. I work for so-and-so, the ambulance company. However, I've seen a couple of employees a few aisles over. I'm sure they'll be happy to help." The woman then says, "Young man, you will do your job. I need you to find this item for me." "Ma'am, again, I'm really sorry, but I don't work here. I work on the ambulance you had to walk past to come inside. Now, I apologize, but I do need to finish my shopping so we can get back to the station." I then reach into the cooler, grab a packet of bacon because bacon always wins, and I plop it into my basket and turn and start to leave. And this crazy old bat decides to shove her cart in my way, trying to block me from walking away from her. And she says, "Young man, I will have you know that my husband is so-and-so, and my shopping here pays your wages. Now do what I say and help me, now." Between the crash of her cart hitting the cooler and her escalating the tone of her voice, we've thankfully caught the attention of the store employee. They come around the corner, and it turns out that it's the store manager. I recognize her because we've run calls at the store before, and she says, "Mrs. Karen, please calm down and I will gladly help you." She's getting wound up to start yelling again. And about that time, my radio starts going off. I silence it, turn to the store manager, and apologize to her for having to run off and leaving my groceries in the cart. But we're getting a call, and I do have to go. The manager is very understanding, and as I'm walking off, I hear the old bat yelling at the store manager, "Where does he think he's going? I need this item." To which the manager replies, presumably to his ambulance to respond to that call since that's his job. Guys, I used to read these stories and think, what kind of person in their right mind would think a first responder in a full uniform works at a grocery store? And then I realized a lot of these people might not be in the right state of mind. Either that, or they're so entitled that they see anybody and everybody as their servants. I was shopping at a store that rhymes with strafesay this weekend, on the way home from a really awesome date night with my fiance. So I was dressed pretty nicely. Black jacket, black skirt, and heels. Fiance and I usually go our separate ways in the store to achieve the best efficiency as possible. So I was alone when this interaction started. An older Karen, probably around 60, was putting around the soup aisle. She was hemming and hawing at the sale. 10 for $10. And I guess she saw me with my cart putting something back on the shelf. She then clears her throat a few times and she stomped the ground, but obviously I was just minding my own business. Karen then says, "Hey, lady." Now, when she said that, I was busy deciding between the Safe Stray brand mac and cheese, or Kraft. Karen then says, "Hey, you, manager, excuse me, hey." I finally acknowledged her and said, "Oh, me? Oh, I'm not a manager. Did you need help or something?" She says, "Well, obviously I need help. You are a manager. Why else would you be dressed like that? Which one of these soups counts for the 10 for $10? I say to her, I'm not a manager and I don't know. Probably the ones that are directly labeled in the sign that says 10 for $10. Hearing that, Karen says, "What the hell is your problem? I ask you a simple question and you give me that attitude? How did you even get to be manager?" The woman then stomped over like I was a child, about to get disciplined, yelling at me about customer service, how I should do my job and help her choose her soups, and that I'm all that's wrong with the youth today. Something also along the lines of me getting fired for incompetence, and I don't know, I just zoned out. I then say to her, "Ma'am, if you need help, please go up to one of the cashiers that works here and ask them. I'm here buying food like you." Karen then says, "Stop lying. Do you think I'm stupid? You are an effing manager here. You are wearing the costume. Do you think you can just..." At that point, I interrupt her and said, "Okay, listen, And before I can get another word out, Karen smacks my hand, making me drop the box of mac and cheese I was holding. And she says, "Don't you dare effing interrupt me. Was I done talking?" I say to her, "What the heck, lady, you just hit me." And she responds, "Yeah, I did, because you interrupted me." At this point, my fiance heard my yelling and he zoomed over. He was also dressed nicely, button up, black slacks, the works. And he says, "What's happening, babe? Are you alright?" I tell him that Karen just slapped my hand because she's too thick to hear me when I say I don't work here. Karen sees my fiance and says, "Hey, you need to fire this bitch. She won't do her job." Fiance then asked her, "Do you really think that everybody dressed remotely nice is a manager?" Now, it does take Karen a few seconds to respond, and she says, "Well, I know she is. She was putting back that jar earlier." I tell her because I didn't want to buy it. I'm a customer. I then tell my fiance to grab an actual manager because I want to call the cops on this crazy woman. Now, this is getting long, so the rest of it went like this. She stepped back in shock that we both yelled at her, and my fiance waved over some poor unsuspecting person. The actual manager gets there, and the lady starts BSing again about how both me and my fiance should get fired, how we suck, etc, blah blah blah. And she proudly admitted to hitting me, which was hilarious. The manager looked at us and back at her and told her to apologize for hitting me again, and that she should leave. She again mentioned my manager costume and how it's my fault. The manager in his actual manager outfit pointed at his badge and his name tag, and his specific all-black outfit, and tried to explain to her that all managers are dressed like he was, and we were definitely not managers just because we looked nice, and she's assaulting other customers. Karen then says, "But she deserved it for talking back to me." At this point, the manager had this "I want to run you over with a car" look on his face, and he slowly spoke to her like she was 3 years old, explaining that we didn't work there. I piped up, asking the manager to politely inform the woman that if she didn't apologize, I would like him to call the police because she assaulted me. The manager repeated this to the lady slowly, and the lady screeched and then threw a can on the ground, swiped her arm through a bunch of the soups, causing them to avalanche to the ground, and briskly waddled out of the store. We then helped the manager pick up the soups, even though he kept saying sorry that we didn't have to help him, and he asked if I really wanted to press charges. I tell him no, there's no point, and I just thought it would make her go away. But if he wanted to make a police report, I would be happy to provide my statement, We laughed about my manager costume, and I got a $30 gift card to use for groceries. Guys, this story is just as ridiculous as the last one. Like, if anybody dressed nice is a manager to this woman, she must see managers at every store she goes to. Like, seriously, talk about clueless and crazy. And she was lucky she only slapped OP's hand. Like, one of these days, she might hit somebody with a can and they'll definitely want to press charges. And ruin her, like the Karen in this next story. A bit over 10 years ago, I tore ligaments in my shoulder, but I couldn't afford to fix it, so I just lived with it for 10 years. It was a bit unstable, but usually didn't hurt that much until a very rude Karen walked up to me demanding that I help her. Her attitude was typical of a Karen seen in other stories here. Not realizing she mistook me for an employee, I told her politely that she could go F off, and turned away. The next thing I felt was excruciating pain in my shoulder, the likes of which I hadn't felt in 10 years. My arm was dislocating, and the ligaments already torn were ripping apart completely. Now, to be fair, if my shoulder had been healthy, it would have handled the pulling that the woman was doing, and she had no way of knowing that my shoulder wasn't healthy. As it turned out, legally speaking, it doesn't matter. Now, I'm not proud of what happened next, even though everybody told me that I was perfectly justified. I have an almost pathological prohibition against hitting a woman, but the fact that my arm was literally being torn off overrode that prohibition, and before I could stop it, my fist smashed into her face. It knocked out 3 teeth, broke her nose, and 2 of my fingers, but it did stop her from pulling my arm. Frankly, I was horrified of what I'd done, but it was all caught on tape, so legally, I was defending myself. The woman ended up being convicted of felony assault with grave bodily harm, and she got 5 years in prison. I also heard that she lost her very good paying job, as that position couldn't be held by a convicted felon. Her husband also left her, taking full custody of the kids and taking most of her money. The money she had left over went mostly to me, paying to have my shoulder fixed. The last I heard, she was out of prison working in a shop. Of course, when she chose to grab me, she had no idea how much damage she was about to do, but as I said, that doesn't matter. If you put your hands on someone, you become fully responsible for any damage you cause, even if you're just aggravating a pre-existing condition. That includes any damage the other person might cause in defending themselves. Frankly, I'm not even mad at her. Like, sure, she hurt me, but I don't think she deserved to have her entire life utterly destroyed. But as they say, life is rarely fair. The consequences of your choices can be far worse than what you expect, and go far beyond what's fair. I really do hope that she doesn't have to deal with too many entitled, rude people like herself. So my friends, the lesson here is don't touch anybody without their consent. If you guys have been following this channel and listening to these stories, you've probably heard many stories where Karens just grab and yank strangers, and this is by far the best example of the worst case scenario when you touch somebody without their permission. During my first year of college, I lived in a dorm. It sucked a lot. So when my friend Paula asked me if I would like to go in on an apartment with her and her friend Heather, I said heck yes. We each took a utility. Paula had the gas bill, Heather had electric, and I had the phone. I bought a telephone and an answering machine, and we recorded a cutesy outgoing message. Within minutes, we had the first call. A guy looking for Abby Auto Rental. I told him he had the wrong phone number, and he hung up. He then calls back immediately and asked, Abby Auto Rental? I told him, nope, me again. He then read off my new phone number, and I said, well, that's the number here, but this is a private residence. He then said, well, I guess you're aft because there's a half-page ad for Abby Auto Rental in the yellow pages with that number, so good luck. So I grabbed the yellow pages and flipped to the car rental section, and sure enough, it was our number. I guess they had gone out of business fairly recently for the ad to still be included in the phone book. So we changed our cutesy outgoing message to say, sorry, this is not Abby Auto Rental. They're out of business. You've reached Dave, Paula, and Heather. Please leave a message. It made no difference whatsoever. People kept leaving messages for Abby Auto Rental. At the end of the year, Paula and Heather moved out, and Dan and Jorma moved in. Now, Jorma used to enjoy messing with the callers. He would take down their credit card number and make a reservation, promising free delivery, just as it said in the ad. He would then go off to class. When the reservation time rolled around, the customer would call back furious at the absence of their rental car, and frequently, I would be the one answering the phone. It would go like this. I would say, hello. The irate customer would say, where the heck is my car? And I would say, sorry, Abby Auto Rental went out of business 2 years ago. They would then say, what are you talking about? I gave my credit card number to somebody this morning. To which I would then respond, you must have been talking to the ghost of Mr. Abby, woo. And of course, the irate customer would say, I'm coming down there to kick your ass. So I would tell him, see you soon. You have the address from the ad, right? How are you gonna get here with no car? When Jorma moved out and Michelle moved in, we decided it was time to change the outgoing message again. We left longer and longer messages, but the calls kept coming. They had phone books. The phone books were 3 years old, and Abby Auto Rental must still exist. It must. Finally, I went out and bought a longer tape for the outgoing message. I recorded The Gift by the Velvet Underground. The song is 8 minutes and 16 seconds long. The left channel is the band noodling around aimlessly on their guitars, and the right channel is a male voice with a British accent, telling a story about a man who mailed himself to his girlfriend. We told all of our friends to just hit the star key and bypass the outgoing message. This finally eliminated the car rental messages. I left the answering machine that way and tried to forget about it. Almost a year later, I came home to a light blinking on the machine. It was a peevish voice of a little old lady who had clearly listened to the entire story, including the part where the girlfriend uses a sheet metal cutter to open the box, accidentally killing her boyfriend. The message said, that's a very nice story, but that doesn't help me. I want to rent a car. If I was OP, I would have changed my phone number that first week. Those calls would get annoying way too fast. But then again, they wouldn't have had this much fun if that happened. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the stories in this episode. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, an insane Karen fakes getting attacked to try to send OP to jail, and it backfires so hard. Check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.